Hi guys, Holly from Guinea, West Australia. Today is the 28th of November 2018. Now I'm doing this video because I want to talk about the medical goings on to myself that I cannot stop. I am talking about a virtual surgeon platform. I am talking next generation technology that cannot be seen. Now, I am what you would call a targeted individual. For those that don't know what a targeted individual is, a targeted individual is somebody that is targeted by their government and other governments, defence and federal agencies. Now, you are normally targeted to be used as a human guinea pig. You're used where they will research their next generation neurotechnology weapons, or in my case, not just neuro, but also a medical platform. Now, it's a medical platform I want to talk about today because when you are talking things going on in your home that you cannot see, it makes it very, very hard to prove. Now, for myself, I started to research what was going on to myself close to 21 years ago. It all started when I left New Zealand and came to Guinea, West Australia. A lot of things started to go very, very wrong medically. I started having seizures. I started having major headaches. I started having problems with my eyes. I started having problems with my ears ringing. I started waking up with black eyes, swollen face, deformed ears, bruises. But the morning I woke up with 2 broken ribs, I knew that something serious was going on. At the same time, I woke up with, or at the same time, why this medical goings on, I was being tagged by federal agencies, by police, by detectives. Whenever I left my house, if I was walking, they would follow me via cars. If I was driving, there would be 2 cars. If I left and went to the city, I would be followed all the way. If I stayed in the city, they would follow me home the next day. I could not get rid of them. The name attached to this is Shane Page. Detective Shane Robert Page. I have a signed affidavit from the shopkeeper that witnessed this detective Shane Page, who, as far as I'm concerned, is nothing but a federal agent's sleazy sexual predator. Because this sleazy little thing had me illegally strip searched. Then he proceeded to stalk me into the shop where it was witnessed. And like I said, I have a signed affidavit from the shopkeeper. I took this Shane Page all the way to the Commissioner of Crime, who thanked me for my work, but however he couldn't find him. He couldn't find this Detective Shane Page. So, like he said, file closed. File's not closed, sweetheart. It's far from closed. So I had the federal agencies and detectives follow me 24/7. Now, I was really, really physically sick. Like I said, I'm waking up with bruises, black eyes, swollen faces, broken ribs. Over the years while this was going on, I was having x-rays taken. Usually it was my shoulders were sore, or my ribs. I've got 14 years of x-rays where I can show the shoulder is dislocated. But every x-ray came back clear. I can see it, but I'm not qualified. And you can't argue or debate with someone that's qualified, because I'll just look at you and say, it's fine. Then I had 2 CAT scans, 85 days apart. Now, the first CAT scan I had, when I looked at it, it wasn't right, but I'm not qualified. But it's not right. And the Great Southern Radiology that wrote the report, the specialists there that looked over the CAT scan, said everything was fine. In that CAT scan, I could clearly see the shoulder was dislocated, as it had been for the last 14 years, that the x-rays clearly show. Then 85 days later, I go for my second CAT scan. Hello? Shoulder's straight. It's plumb. And you can see lots of other little attachments and a lot of things that have been put inside me that weren't there in the first CAT scan 85 days beforehand. I haven't left my house. I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't done anything. 85 days? How can that be? I have posted copies of my CAT scans and pictures from that second CAT scan showing what's been put in. That isn't part of me. I wasn't born with it. And I've never had surgery, internal surgery, for anything like what's been put inside me. Based on the CAT scan, the second CAT scan, you can clearly see that there are things that go from one side of my here to here, all round here. I've never had surgery for this. The CAT scans, second CAT scan, clearly shows what I call loops on my spine. I've never had spinal surgery. They weren't there in the first scan. You couldn't see them in the first CAT scan, but you can clearly see them in the second CAT scan. I didn't leave my house, which leaves only 2 scenarios. It's a virtual surgeon platform, or someone's coming into my house at night time. I changed the locks on my windows. I changed the locks on my doors. Still kept on getting in. Still kept on happening. I sold my house to get away. Still kept on happening. I lock my door every night when I go to bed. My bedroom door. Like this morning. I wake up sore. Still happening. What can be doing it? I started my research. Ground floor Katanning, defence bases, defence platforms, DISTO, Defence Science and Technology Organisation. Now, Defence Science and Technology Organisation for myself is an area of concern because the Optus C1 satellite bearing down on Katanning, and I don't just mean a satellite in the sky over West Australia. This bitch is bearing down on Katanning, and I have Katanning's name on the paperwork for the Optus C1. Now, this Optus C1, this $19.5 million deal between Department of Defence and the Optus for DIBS, for command control. Command control is C2. For command control of the Optus C1. So Australia Defence got dibs on the Optus C1. Then comes America. And America puts their wide global SATCOM platform onto the Optus C1, which now, the wide global SATCOM platform is the net-centric warfare platform. Now this net-centric warfare can be known as multiple different things. It can just be called the net-centric warfare. You can call it the C2. That's a capital C2. You can call it the WGS. You can call it Joint Projects 2008, which is the net-centric warfare. So we'll call it the Joint Projects 2008. Now, this 2008 net-centric warfare comes with a C3I intelligence payload. So this is all being put on the Optus C1 electronic surveillance payload. Now, I've gone from the Optus C1 and calling it electronic surveillance because Defence Science and Technology Organisation, DISTO, also have their 5 cents worth attached to the Optus C1. Now, this is the Electronic Surveillance Research Lab. Electronic surveillance? Theatre Broadcast Systems, it's called. Now, anyone that knows anything about defence, theatre is theatre of operations for future concept of operations. Now, so this theatre broadcast systems, when America put their C2 SATCOM platform attached to it, this turns it, they also put their Joint Projects 2065. Now this Joint Projects 2065 is the integrated broadcast services attached to the Optus C1, attached to DISTO's theatre broadcast services. Now, DISTO, electronic surveillance, has their fingers in a lot of pies. The one name I have attached to DISTO, Electronic and Surveillance Research Lab, is a Dr. Matthew Berryman. Now this Dr. Matthew Berryman, he's also Cloud Computer Smart Infrastructure Facility at the Cloud Computing Smart Infrastructure Facility Internet of Things. So this boy's got his fingers in a lot of pies. He's also, like I said, he's a doctor. And for those that don't know what a spy is, a spy, apart from a spy, if you S-P-I-E, high case, there are spies on many different areas. You have spies for radio, you have spies for magnetics, you have spies for medical. Well, this is what Dr. Matthew Berryman is. He's a spy for the medical side of things. Micro smart systems. Smart infrastructure facility, no shit. We'll get back to that because there's a wee bit more, because that smart infrastructure facility where Dr. Matthew Berryman was working, the Professor Peter Campbell, Argonne National Labs, that did was in America for 22 years, comes back to Australia, starts working for Defence Systems Institute. Why he's still in his capacity of Argonne National Lab, takes on a 3-year contract for CSIRO to do a simulation of Katanning. So once this Professor Peter Campbell finishes with Katanning's 3-year simulation, he buggers off down to the Smart Infrastructure Facility to set it up for agent-based modelling and model-based systems engineering. And of course, Katanning's simulation is agent-based. Actually, our simulation is agent-based, non-linear, complex, adaptive systems. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you actually do a bit of research, complex adaptive systems, well, there's 3 systems in that. You've got a complex systems, you've got an adaptive systems, and then you've got the system. So it's not just a complex adaptive systems, it's huge. It's huge. For a town to be decked out or to be done as a non-linear, and the reason it's non-linear is because humans are involved and they interact with what the system spits out at them. You'd almost call it a matrix. And as far as the people of the community, like myself, it puts us pretty much living in, word for word, critical social dimensions in complex landscape systems, which is non-linear. So we're dealing with what the system throws at you. So this is all being decked out on ground floor with complex adaptive systems, with the Optus C1, and then the ground team. Now, this Joint Projects 2072 ground floor, net-centric, well, networking the ground floor. This networking the ground floor, I strongly believe, works with the net-centric warfare involved in the Optus C1, which is your MIL-SATCOM, which is your Joint Projects 2008. Now, this ground floor, the Joint Projects 2072 is not the only ground floor that Katanning has. Defence. We also have the Joint Projects 2047. Now, this 2047 is a terrestrial communication platform. Now, this terrestrial communication platform works alongside the WGS-84. Now, this WGS-84 is US, it's an American Air Force, American Defence Force, global coordinates, and it's based on the grid of the Earth right down to the positive to the negative. It's plumb. Well, Katanning's Great Southern Agriculture Research Institute, where the 210 data sets, and your 210 data sets, they're the STEP, the Amy, the Magnus, the Meridium, the Steel, all these data sets, check them out. They are global, they are Air Force bases, they are universities, it's huge, it's absolutely huge. The Magnus 210 data sets link up with the quasi-zenith orbit satellite. Now that quasi-zenith, that is being decked out with crystal oscillator, it does medical. It does telemedicine. It does it in Japan, and it probably does it in Katanning. You wouldn't know. The WGS-84 works with the terrestrial communication platform. Once again, the Magnus forms the quasi, which is the terrestrial communication platform. This is not just made up of the 210 data sets, this is made up of the next generation high level architecture SATCOM GPS satellites. So it's not just Australia's next generation Optus C1 satellite involved. There's America, there's China, there's Russia. Many, many countries involved in this quasi-zenith satellite. Check it out. The area of concern with this satellite, with this with the quasi-zenith and the 210 data sets. The 210 data sets are collected out at the Ag Institute, Great Southern Agriculture Research Institute, Katanning, which is WGS-84, which is an American platform. All the data sets start by transient and induced variations in aerial magnetics for the 210 data sets. Now, one person's name involved is a Japanese name, Kayamoto. Now, this Kayamoto, for the 210 data sets, whether it be the steel, the step, the Magnus, the Amy, the Meridian, the Cedar, I don't give a shit. All this data for the JAXA, Quasi-Zenith Orbit Satellite, Japan satellite, all this data goes back to unit Kushner University. Now, this Kushner University is otherwise known as Unit 731. Do you know what Unit 731 was? Unit 731 was a World War II Japan Chinese involvement with human medical experimentation, vivisections, the crimes, what took place with Unit 731 is absolutely disgusting. China was involved. As far as the humans were not called humans, you were either referred to as a log or a Manchurian monkey. Now, so all this data for the 210, for the Quasi-Zenith, that all goes back to this Kushner University, which was part of the Unit 731. So when it comes to human research, medical research, and I've got all those data sets that get being collected with the Quasi, you bet it means something. Then, okay, so with my medical, things were going on. I could see it in x-rays and I could see it in CAT scans. Medical professions don't acknowledge it. They don't see it. It's fine. How do you beat it? How do you stop it from happening? I've got CAT scans. I've got the x-rays. I can show clearly within 85 days in my own home the before and after. I wrote to the National Health Medical Research Council 3 times. Who are they? They are the governing bodies for Australia as far as what's acceptable when it comes to medical research on humans. It is their job. That's what they are there for, to deal with cases like mine. Well, they tell me to take it up with the Australian Defence. No shit. I'd already told them it was Department of Defence because I've researched Katanning. And I know who's doing this to me, and yes, it's Department of Defence and it's Defence Science and Technology Organisation. But the National Health Medical Research Council, it's not their job to tell me to take it up with the Department of Defence. It's their job to deal with the medical issue. And as far as Department of Defence goes, I wrote to Department of Defence probably 9 years ago. Not just Australia, but also Australasia. I've written to Australian Prime Ministers. I've written to Australian Human Rights. I've written to a lot of letters. And what you do is you make sure you send your letters registered and requiring delivery confirmation. Because when you're dealing with situations like mine and you contact Australian federal agencies, they choose to ignore you. So when you send your letters, always make sure it's registered with delivery confirmation, because they have to sign that confirmation and send it back to you so you know they received your letter. Well, in Australia, federal agencies, prime ministers, defence, they think they're a law to themselves and they don't think they have to fill that paperwork out. But I paid for it, and legally they do. So, in my case, they didn't sign the confirmation form and send it back. So how am I meant to prove that I've contacted them? I jumped up and down to the post office. I was a bitch. I got packing slips. I've got signatures. My letters got delivered to who they were meant to be delivered to, so they can't ignore me. They can't say I didn't contact them, because I did. It still hasn't stopped. I'm still a human guinea pig. This morning, I woke up. I was sore. The goings on, what they've done here, like even when I try and lift my arms up, the pain, the whole, everything is just, you can't really see in these, with this camera, but seriously, what's happened, what they've done here and what's been put in this whole area, what's been wired in here, wasn't there in the first CAT scan, but it was there in the second CAT scan. In 85 days. Now, can that happen on a virtual surgeon platform? Or do I need someone actually coming into my house at night when I'm asleep? I lock my doors. When it first started, when I owned my own home, I put all new locks on the windows. I changed the locks on the doors. Didn't stop. They kept on getting in. I sold my house to get away from it. They followed me. I lock my bedroom door every night. I still wake up sore. I still wake up with bruises. And they're still getting me. The Australian government aren't going to stop it. The National Health Medical Research Council aren't going to stop it. Who's going to stop it? How are they getting me? Are they on ground floor? Coming into my house? Yes, they are on ground floor. Like I said, Joint Projects 2072, Joint Projects 2047. And then we can throw in distos. And they're doing their field work in Katanning, ground floor. Are those filthy little fuckers getting into my house at night time? Someone is. Who? What am I meant to do? Put up with it? Write another letter? No. You make videos like this one, and you tell your story, and you make it very, very clear. All my documentation has been put in the hands of someone safe via my contacts on Facebook. They have documentation. Via the study, the TI study, and the documentation I've sent forward via disk, thumb drive, to a legal human rights solicitor in America. My documentation is not going away. I am not going away, whether I am alive or dead. Where I'm at now is I can not stop it. They are not going to leave me alone. They are going to keep going. What do? I've got two choices. I live with it or I die with it. I am more than happy to die with it. More than happy. because I can prove it. They know I can prove it, but they haven't stopped. What do I do? Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. This will be the last video I'm going to make. Why? Because I will be going into the shed and I'm going to hang myself. No, I'm not sad. I'm past sad. I'm disgusted. I am absolutely disgusted with Australia. I'm disgusted with the people at the top in Australia. I will not go unnoticed. I will leave my mark on this earth. I will leave my mark on Katanning. Names involved: Professor Peter Campbell, Dr. Matthew Berryman, Professor Peter Lindsay, or Dr. Peter Lindsay, Defence Science Technology Organisation, Salisbury, Shane Page, Philip Bonner, Crime Watch, Juanita Bonner, all these names are involved in my case. They've been documented. Dr. Matthew Berryman, you're buggered. Dr. Matthew Berryman, who is Dr. Matthew Berryman? Dr. Matthew Berryman I actually contacted via email because he's very much involved. I contacted Dr. Matthew Berryman, and what did Dr. Matthew Berryman do? He contacted the mental health in Katanning and tried to sick the mental health onto me. I had a phone call with the lady at mental health who was very nice. I invited her around to my house, and she came around with another fella, and I told them my story. I showed them my CAT scan pictures. The only thing I got when they walked away out of my house: don't post any more about Katanning. Don't post any more about your medical. And don't post about Dr. Matthew Berryman on Facebook anymore. You see, Dr. Matthew Berryman, when he rang the mental health area in Katanning, he told them that I was stressing him out on Facebook. Bullshit. I sent the little prick an email and I told him, and he didn't like it. He didn't like the truth. And the truth is, a lot of years ago, why they were doing their medical, I had to go and have half my cervix cut out with cancer. And by the way, like I said, Dr. Matthew Berryman, he's a cancer spy. Micro, smart cancer spy. So after having a breast lump removed, I then got half my cervix cut out and was having trouble sleeping. So when I had to go back and see the female doctor, just to check up after the surgery, I mentioned to her about my trouble sleeping, and she suggested I go and talk to someone about it. So I did. I went to the mental health. While I was at the mental health talking to a mental health worker, Greg Moray, I did the fatal mistake of scratching my arm. And he saw the scratches and told me I had psoriasis. I told him it feels like there were things crawling under my skin. Well, before I knew it, he left the room, come back in with some medication and told me he wanted me to take this medication. I said no. So then the threat started. Well, what are you going to do with your children? See, I'm a single mum. What are you going to do with your kids when I lock you up in a mental institute? I'm there as an outpatient. It scared the crap out of me though. So I grabbed his tablets, yes sir, no sir, and I went home and I rang the West Australian Medical Board, who told me, don't take the tablets, go back and see your doctor, which I did. Well, anyway, I never went back to see this Glenn Moray, who is a registered nurse wearing a mental health badge, because this medication he tried to force down my throat is a major psychotic drug. Now, it is to be prescribed after a specialist consultation by a specialist, not a registered nurse pretending to be a psychiatric nurse. As far as my skin rashes, like I said to him, it feels like my skin's crawling. I got it analysed and I had unknown parasites. 5 years I dealt with this. Parasites, unknown to the human or animal world, crawling in my skin. My arms, face, ears, they were even in my ears. I had shit coming out of my ears. But the government department, Path West, they lost that sample bag. Now, so once I was able to prove the extent of this Greg Moray trying to threaten me to take this major psychotic drug that he is not in a position to prescribe, and the warnings of this medication, you don't take it if you've had a family history of breast cancer, a family history of cervical cancer, or any form of seizures. Hello. Since being in Catania, I've had seizures left, right and centre. I've already had half my cervix cut out, and I had a breast lump removed. So really, it's not a medication for myself. From there, I took this Glenn Moray all the way to the top, because he's a very dangerous man. And he's meant to be a psychiatric nurse dealing with children. Yes, it's a very big area of concern. So anyway, while I had the mental health here, after Dr. Matthew Berryman rang them and lied and told them that he was concerned because of what I was posting on Facebook. He lied to them. He didn't tell them that I'd sent him an email, because this whole thing came about with the email, like I told Dr. Matthew Berryman, after my stint with mental health, after having half my cervix cut out, there was more blood. Blood, 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 blood. I was about bled for 12 months. I had to go and have my blood screened in case I needed a blood transfusion. Now, during this transfusion, or possible transfusion, I made it very clear to my doctor, in the event, should I ever be involved in an accident where I am not in a position to speak for myself, the only form of medical intervention to save my life is resuscitation and man-made plasma. Now, this is my choice. I've made for myself, not for my kids. If anything happens to my kids, you give them whatever they need to save their life. But when they talked about me having to have blood, that wasn't going to happen. I've got what I was born with. I don't want anything else in me. This is my choice. I have freedom of choice. I have freedom when it comes to medical. I have freedom when it comes to religion. This is my belief. It is on my medical folder. This was in my medical folder before I had my CAT scans. Now, my medical folder makes it very, very clear. Nothing gets put inside of me to save me. I got what I was born with, and I don't want anything else. That's my choice. Now, those CAT scans. I've got stuff inside of me now that I didn't sign up for. Someone chose to put them in me. I'm not living with it. Like I said, I have two choices. I live with it or I die with it. I will die with it. That's all. Goodbye.